The rain fell in relentless sheets, drenching the streets of a forgotten neighborhood where broken street lamps flickered weakly against the darkness. The sound of rushing water filled the air as it streamed through cracked sidewalks and pothole-ridden roads, creating a symphony of despair that matched the mood of those who lived there. Anthony Miles sat silently in the back of his black limousine, its sleek exterior glistening under the streetlights. He was a man who commanded respect and fear, a self-made millionaire whose name was synonymous with power and success. Tonight, however, his sharp mind wasn't on business deals or his growing empire. He was lost in thoughts of his own lonely childhood, memories he usually kept buried deep beneath layers of wealth and control. As his driver slowed near a rundown corner store, Anthony's attention was drawn to a small, fragile figure standing in the pouring rain. It was a little black girl, no more than 7 years old, wearing a thin, ragged dress that clung to her shivering body. She clutched an empty glass bottle to her chest like it was her most precious possession. The sight was so unexpected, so raw, that Anthony leaned forward without thinking. "Stop the car!" he ordered sharply. His driver glanced at him through the mirror, surprised, but did as instructed. Anthony's eyes stayed locked on the girl, his heart stirring with an emotion he hadn't felt in decades. Something like recognition, or maybe the painful echo of a life he thought he'd left behind. From the warmth of the limousine, Anthony watched the girl gather her courage and push open the heavy wooden door of the store. Through the rain-streaked window, he could see the interaction play out. She approached the counter timidly, placing the empty bottle down and speaking quickly, her small hands gesturing desperately. The shopkeeper, a gruff-looking man with a scowl etched permanently onto his face, shook his head. Even through the glass, Anthony could see the dismissal in the man's body language, the impatience in his movements. The little girl pleaded, her lips trembling, but the man crossed his arms and pointed to the door, his face hard and unyielding. Anthony's jaw tightened as anger surged through him. The girl clutched the bottle again, her shoulders slumping as she turned toward the exit. When she stepped back outside, the storm seemed to swallow her whole. Her tears mixed with the rain as she stood motionless for a moment, staring at the bottle as if it had betrayed her. Anthony couldn't stay inside the car any longer. Without a word, he pushed the door open and stepped out into the cold, his expensive shoes splashing into a deep puddle. The girl gasped when she saw him, her wide eyes filled with fear and uncertainty. "Hey there," Anthony said softly, kneeling slightly so he wouldn't tower over her. His voice was calm, gentle, a stark contrast to the commanding tone he used in boardrooms. "Why are you out here alone in this storm?" The girl sniffled, hugging the bottle tighter. "Mama's sick," she whispered, her voice so small it was almost lost to the rain. "My baby brother's hungry. We don't got no milk. I told the man I'd pay when I grow up, but he said no." Her words were like a knife to Anthony's heart. For a moment, he was back in his own childhood, standing on a similar street corner, cold and hungry, begging for scraps while people passed by without even a glance. He swallowed hard, forcing himself back to the present. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Ruby," she said, barely above a whisper. "Ruby," Anthony repeated, the name resonating deeply within him. "Where's your home? Can you show me?" Ruby hesitated, her little hands trembling. Trust didn't come easily to her, but there was something in Anthony's eyes, a mixture of kindness and strength, that made her nod slowly. Anthony removed his coat and wrapped it around Ruby's tiny frame. The fabric swallowed her up, but the warmth brought a small sigh of relief from her chapped lips. Without another word, he lifted her into his arms and carried her to the limousine. The driver's eyes widened in surprise, but remained silent as Anthony settled Ruby carefully in the back seat. The car began to move through the rain-soaked streets, the soft hum of the engine a stark contrast to the chaos outside. Ruby sat quietly beside Anthony, staring at him with a mixture of fear and hope. Anthony, meanwhile, was consumed by a storm of thoughts. How had this child been left to face such hardship alone? Where was the system meant to protect her? He felt a rising determination to find answers and to do something about it. When the limousine finally pulled up to a crumbling apartment building, Anthony's anger deepened. The structure looked barely habitable, its walls cracked and windows broken. Ruby led him up 3 flights of rickety stairs to a dimly lit room, where a young woman lay on a threadbare mattress, her skin pale with fever. In the corner, a baby whimpered softly. Ruby rushed to her side, clutching her mother's hand. "Mama, I brought help," she said, her voice hopeful and trembling. The woman's eyes fluttered open, confusion mingling with shame as she took in the sight of Anthony, a tall, imposing figure in an expensive suit. "Sir, we don't need charity," she whispered weakly. Anthony knelt beside her, his expression soft but resolute. "This isn't charity," he said firmly. "It's what should have been done long ago." He could see the desperation in her gaze, the fear of judgment, the exhaustion of someone who had been fighting alone for far too long. Without hesitation, Anthony called his private physician and ordered his driver to bring warm food, clean water, and medicine. He stayed by Tanya's side, for that was her name, as the doctor examined her and the baby. Ruby sat close to Anthony, watching in awe as their tiny, dark room slowly filled with light and warmth. "Why are you doing this?" she asked finally, her eyes wide. Anthony paused, then answered with a quiet honesty that surprised even himself. "Because when I was your age, Ruby, I needed someone to help me. No one did. I won't let that happen to you." Over the next few days, Anthony became a constant presence in Ruby's life. He visited morning and night, bringing supplies, overseeing Tanya's care, and even holding the baby so Tanya could rest. The neighbors watched in stunned disbelief as the powerful millionaire walked through their halls, carrying bags of groceries or repairing broken furniture with his own hands. Tanya, though still wary, began to trust him. She saw how Ruby's face lit up whenever he entered the room, how his presence brought peace to their chaotic world. Slowly, she allowed herself to hope again. One evening, as Anthony prepared to leave, Ruby tugged on his sleeve. "Mr. Anthony," she said timidly, "when I grow up, I'm going to pay you back for all this. I promise." Her words caught him off guard. He knelt, meeting her serious gaze. "Ruby," he said softly, "you don't owe me anything. Just grow up strong and kind. That will be payment enough." But Ruby shook her head stubbornly. "No, I'm going to make the world better. You'll see." Anthony realized then that something extraordinary was happening. His help wasn't just saving a family. It was planting seeds of hope that could grow far beyond anything he imagined. Ruby was already dreaming of a future where she could give back, where her story wouldn't be defined by poverty or pain. Over time, Anthony's bond with Ruby and her family deepened. He moved them into a safe, clean home and enrolled Ruby in the best school he could find. Under his guidance, Ruby flourished. She excelled in her studies, her natural intelligence and determination shining through now that she was free from constant fear and hunger. Tanya's health improved, and she often marveled at the strange twist of fate that had brought Anthony into their lives. "You were sent to us for a reason," she told him once. Anthony only smiled, replying, "No, Tanya, you were sent to me. You reminded me of what matters most." Years passed, and Ruby grew into a remarkable young woman. She graduated at the top of her class, her heart set on helping others, just as Anthony had helped her. On the day of her graduation, Anthony stood in the crowd, his chest swelling with pride as Ruby crossed the stage. Afterwards, she hugged him tightly and whispered, "See, I told you I'd pay you back." Anthony's eyes filled with tears as he whispered back, "You already have, Ruby, more than you'll ever know." Inspired by her journey, Ruby founded a charitable organization dedicated to supporting children and families in crisis. She called it the Promise Foundation, in honor of the vow she had made on that stormy night so many years ago. The foundation grew quickly, its reach spreading across cities and states. Families who had once been invisible to society now found hope and support through Ruby's programs. Anthony, though growing older, continued to stand by her side as her mentor and biggest supporter. Together, they traveled to communities in need, spreading not just resources, but a message of compassion and resilience. Ruby often shared her story publicly, reminding people that change could begin with something as small as a bottle of milk and a promise. Her words inspired countless others to take action, creating a ripple effect of kindness that transformed lives far beyond what either of them had ever imagined. On the 15th anniversary of the Promise Foundation, Ruby stood before a massive crowd, the original glass bottle displayed behind her under a beam of soft light. She took a deep breath, her voice steady as she addressed the audience. When I was 7 years old, I stood in the rain with nothing but an empty bottle and a promise to pay when I grew up. A man stopped that night. He gave me milk, yes, but more importantly, he gave me hope, dignity, and a future. Today we gather